Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And right now, I'd like to ask Professor Hegyi to close the session and give some closing remarks to us.
So, ladies and gentlemen, now we are on the third day of the conference, and I am really happy that this conference, I think, was really a success. And at the very beginning of the conference, I summarized what we have done actually in the history of the Hungarian Pancreatic Study Group, which I learned a lot during the way how we could actually achieve what we could do. The first, I think, a little bit it needs to go backwards to at the end of the 90s when I was trained at the University of Szeged. I had MD, PhD, and I felt that I am a really good researcher, good scientist, and I was very lucky to receive a Bell-Cutros Fellowship to Newcastle upon Tyne, which was one of the major pancreatic physiology center there. So I never forget the day when I arrived there, and we discussed all the projects for the whole day. And at the end of the day, I could understand only the yes and no during the discussions. And when I went back to the hotel and looked at the mirror, I just pushed the replanning button and I said, okay, now Peter, you have to admit to yourself that you are at level of 0. So you have two choices. One of them is to fly back to Hungary, come back and enjoy that I have degrees and try to continue my way how I have done it before, or let's learn what they are doing and try to follow it. So I had no choice because at that time my salary was the minimum wage and I had no money to buy a backward flight. So actually I had no chance just to stay there. But during this 2 years period, I really learned the basics and also the thinking how to ask questions in basic science. And we applied plenty of grants because at that time also healthcare and also the basic science facilities were very lower budgeted, which actually mean that you had to bring money into the system from science, and we could build up a very good laboratory in Szeged. And the next period was, I think, a very key period when we started bringing new young fellows to the laboratories. The first one was Victoria Venglovec, who also presented the day before, and how we went further. Within 50 years, we could really achieve the discovery science. We could find out plenty of new therapeutic targets, and we were at the situation to move forward and try to apply them in a clinical settings. So, however, during this 50 years journey, I learned that everything is learnable and we are exactly the same capability like anybody else in the Western part. So I looked at, okay, let's look at what is in clinical science actually after the basic science part. So, and when I looked at about how the acute pancreatitis patient going, they went to different internal medicine departments, surgical departments, plenty centers, we realized that there are no inadequate patient routes. When we looked at the studies coming out from this area, it was single centers, low numbers. Almost all the studies were retrospectives. We look backwards what we have done with the patients and try to make conclusions with the low N numbers and single center studies. There were absolutely no pre-study information. Of course, it was retrospective. So they were not a planned prospective strategy, how we built it up. They were absolutely lack of clinical research administrators who actually helped the doctors to bring the data from the daily patient's care to structured database. There were low clinical outcome. It means that when we looked at about data, we realized that our outcome parameters are really not as good as. Just one example, 80% administration of antibiotics in acute pancreatitis, which came out from a really big Hungarian registry analysis. We had no Hungarian guideline at all. So everybody either could follow the UK guideline or the EAP guidelines or not. There were no organization which try to bring together the centers in Hungary. There were no common voice, which means that every center believed their own practice and tried to follow it. And when we went to an international conferences, we were always on the back row, 1 or 2 posters behind. So when I looked at this, I felt exactly the same. And the second time in my life in pancreatology, after basic science, and I said, okay, we are at level 0, what to do? And again, there were 2 choices, following what we have done in the past, but it's very predictable. If you do whatever you have done in the last 10 years, this will be the same results in the next 10 years if you don't change. So I wanted to learn, so I looked up the best journals, New England, JAMA, Lancet, Gut Gastroenterology, and looked at all the centers which are there, that who is the best, who are the best. And it was very easy to find out at that time because Marco Bruno, who was also here in the conferences, he was the leader of the Dutch pancreatitis study group and the cancer group as well. So we immediately invited them to the first Hungarian pancreatic study group. And I am happy to see a couple of persons who was already attended at that meeting in Szeged. Unfortunately, due to very emergency clinical department duties, he couldn't come, but he could actually send 2 fellows to teach us the methodology, how to build up a study group. To be honest, and I also refer it that I was a little bit shocked at that time when I was waiting them at the airport, because I felt that 2 really established person will come to tell us the stories, and there were 2 young ladies arrived to the airport. So I was absolutely shocked at what will happen in Szeged, first Hungarian pancreatic study group meeting. It will be a complete disaster because I mean, how they can tell us what to do. And they provided brilliant talks and how they built up. And what I learned from this talk, that there are 2 ways what we must follow during the forthcoming period. One is that together everyone achieve more. This is a very important message. And the second one is about the difference between a leader and the boss. And if we would like to be successful, I think we must be leaders. So what led us to establish in 2011 this organization? One of them is honesty, that we looked at the mirror and we said where we are and where we want to go. The second issue is the loving pancreas. Of course, without this, you can't do anything. But the third one, actually, who knows me knows what does it mean, the burning desire from itself, that we must do something, we go in front. And this was the time when the Hungarian Pancreatic Study Group was established. We immediately built up a structured database, which is a very important issue to go forward. We also started a big talent programs to invite many, many young fellows to the system. We started prospective randomized clinical trials. We are just away in the road, but not there. But we definitely would like to be a world-leading pancreatic center. Plenty of times when I go to academic field, especially universities and everything, I found that this kind of equation, that success equals knowledge, you have to know the basics, and this will lead you to success, especially academics, plenty of times working it. However, what I found that this is not the truth, because success will never come only with knowledge. Success will come knowledge times activity. So if you would like to reach something, it's not enough that I know something, that we need to work every day hard with activity to bring it forward. So after the first meeting, especially started in 2009 at the European Pancreatic Club meeting, and after every year, we invited here the international guest to organize the conference. And this was actually a celebration meeting. And what did bring actually back, if you look at our records, from 2001 to 11, we were committed like a basic science group at that time, and the clinical science part were not really there. But when we actually established a study group based on the structural data, especially registries, and also the Pandora research group also attended here, we could see that how the clinical scientific part would have developed. So between 2001 and 11, this was the curve, what we tried actually to do. And if now look at this one, we can see that a very big range of different clinical methodologies we could actually follow. So I think if I look at worldwide, what makes a center really excellent and really good, I mean, a big distribution and understanding the methodologies, how to make conclusions from our patients. Not only the quantity, but the quality does matter. So if you look at also the journals, we can see that almost every time the D1 and Q1 journals were all targets, and we are really proud. And if I look at abroad to other GI centers, this is really what we can proud of, that the two major journals of gastroenterology, the gut and gastroenterology, we could reach them, and more than half of the studies what we could publish them came out directly from our centers. If I look at, and this is what I usually refer, and maybe not with the best words, but if I look at where are the expertise are in acute pancreatitis, our study group, also in basic science and clinical science, we are actually mentioned worldwide that we have the largest database, and we are a center of excellence in acute pancreatitis. We are running the most amount of studies actually in acute pancreatitis currently as well. However, if you look at pancreatic cancer and all other types, and if I don't count actually the genetic studies, we, I must say, again, needs to build up something from the very beginning. So the third time of my life, changing from a disease field from acute pancreatitis to pancreatic cancer, I would like to see in the Hungarian pancreatic study group in the next 10 years that we are starting also where we are, and we try to improve and go forward. Very importantly, what makes success? And not we, not the leaders actually who make success. We only, our duties is try to make attractive for young people what we are doing. And if I look at backwards in the last 10 years, the real success was in the 10 years, which made everything to be successful. Actually, the PhD students who came through the systems and provided an unbelievable high effort and enthusiasm for the projects. And if I go from 2011, if you look at about every year where we went further, everybody can recognize from the big pictures each other. We look exactly the same, how we looked like 10 years. And every year, the international level, and this is why I'm really happy that all the meetings were in English, because this is the only way to bring international expertise to the system. In 2015 was another big change in the Hungarian pancreatic study group, because at that time, when we wanted to enhance our results to clinical trials, at the University of Szeged, they counted either somebody's a basic scientist, clinical scientist, and they were not open for a translational center, but at the University of PhD, yes. And what made a huge changes actually at that time in 2015 as a milestone is the interdisciplinarity. One of them is to build up an IT group. The other is to start teaching clinical research administrators. The third one about the biostatisticians. If I look at backward or statistical analysis, what I look like and how we presented our data, there were absolutely no real statistics almost behind it, and the different basic and clinical working groups. So this led actually a huge jump about the speed and the success of the Hungarian pancreatic study group, because as I said, in the synergy, we put together everything. Without this unit, we definitely wouldn't be able to reach the international level. And after that, of course, we continued our activities. And if you look at the number of articles, and if I look at our citations, if I go to Scopus and look at how the international visibility came, this international unit was absolutely a key point. And after, in 2017, we were also had a big chance by Gábor Varga to organize a European Pancreatic Club meeting in Budapest. We went further 2018. And if you look at the number of articles, as I showed you at the very beginning, we continuously could elevate the number of activity and success. In 2020, the 9th conference were online. Of course, at that time, due to COVID, we couldn't have a live meeting. This anniversary conference originally were planned at the end of November, early December, when usually the Hungarian Pancreatic Study Group has the meeting. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we had to postpone, but based on the last 2 days discussion and the today personal attendance, I think this was really, really a very good idea to postpone it with 2 months. And luckily we could also have the presentations and we can go back and listen what the others did. And in 2021, another change came because when we decided that go further after this acute pancreatitis type, we wanted to do more research. For doing more research, you need a larger division. And at that time, it was a very good discussion with the rector of the Semmelweis University, who is really very committed to bring the university among the best 100 universities. We want to be in the best 100 universities, which needs really high quality of science. So we established in research category, the Center of Excellence in Pancreatic Diseases, and also, as I mentioned, the importance of young people. Our future is their hands. We established the Translational Medicine Center as well, where currently there are 91 PhD students. They will come to present their progress in the forthcoming days on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And I also thank Attila also, and Laci will be here to accept the invitation to be session chairs at this meeting. So what we believe, what I believe, what can make a center of really excellence, first of all about the healthcare. The day before and yesterday we heard a really lot of multidisciplinarity, and also today we have shown that not only doctors mean multidisciplinarity. We are very weak on this. Unfortunately, physiotherapists, psychologists, dietitians, we reach a minimum level, we much improve on it. But to improve it, we have to bring them on tables. So I mean, the patients needs to be around with all the expertise, even the multidisciplinary one, including surgeons, endoscopists, gastroenterologists, and all the other. The second issue is, I have just showed about the big change in 2015, that around the patients, every patient should include one of the prospectively thought thinking trials, studies, observations, or anything, because you can make conclusions based on a well-designed methodology studies. If you look at what was 10 years ago, the difference between in acute pancreatitis field, us and the others, that was about the prospectively thinking and not the retrospective analysis. The third issue is, which actually needs money, for sure, actually you need to have a huge interest people for science, because of course, it doesn't matter, you can build up a registry. You have a nice electronic registry, but who will upload the data? Who will take the biosamples? Who can go forward? You need to apply grants. And when I looked at about the success of the Dutch Pancreatitis Study Group, one of the main reasons for success was that they could successfully apply for lots of grants. I'm very happy that during the period of the Hungarian Pancreatic Study Group altogether, we could get 9.5 million euros grant in the last 10 years, which made a huge change in the basic science part, in the endoscopy part as well. at the University of Péter. And finally, how to close the issues. And I said not only burning desire needs to get successful, but you need a strategy. Hope is not a strategy. This is one of my motto to my PhD students. You need somehow plenty of blocks, roadblocks during going forward. And it's the same in any other countries. If you discuss them, they also have roadblocks. But the question is whether you can cross this roadblock to be successful. And of course, you need a vision where you want to go. Of course, you need young talents, as I mentioned. This is the very important point to go forward with it. You need very special objectives. Where do we want to be next year, 5 year, or 10 years period? If you can't say where do you want to go, you will never be there. So establishing clear objectives, I think this is one of the main points of collaboration. Ethics, very important. All of the people, stakeholders on the field must follow a real ethical guide. As I said, you need strategy, inspiration. And why we are here and why we actually organize this meeting and this last session, actually this Center of Excellence for Pancreatic Diseases, the AIM Center of Excellence for the Future at Semmelweis University, because the seventh point, what needs to make excellent centers, and we are not yet for sure, but we want to be there, is really the partnership. Without partnership, we will never be there. So if we look at these strategies, if we follow this road, I think this will lead to the success of the Semmelweis University or the Hungarian Pancreatic Study Group Center. And I would like to close with an appreciation of those who gave talks also, and this was in the past 2 days as well, that who had a lot to build up the Hungarian Pancreatic Study Group with plenty of work or currently working for that. So we would like to provide to you, every of you, a certificate about your involvement in pancreatic research. So please, I ask the people to come over, and before I take it down, leave it here. So I'm fine to go through and have István, please come over. Thank you. Okay, your certificate and your name on the surround the border. Okay, Laci, stay here because we make a photo. Laci. Once decided that you also serve with Ákos. Thank you very much. And one last moment, because of course, the meeting success never can be done without a professional help for the conference. And I already acknowledged Mate in the yesterday dinner, but he really had a fantastic job. I think everything was absolutely in a top order, and Mate, I really knew that it was a brilliant decision that we started this work, and I really hope to continue in that way. So thank you very much also for you. So thank you very much. All the presentations will be online, offline, sorry, but all the presentations which were on this meeting, it's good to watch back first for young people to look at as an educational matter, and thank you for everybody.